Hello, and thank you for joining tonight. I appreciate it. I know that it's really, really difficult um, in this busy time. So it's like I said, like she said, I have a 16-year-old and almost 19-year-old, and it's busy. It's a busy, busy time. So I appreciate you taking your time to be here. When I was asked to speak about longevity in ministry, I was like, what does that mean exactly? Like, what are they looking for? I don't know. So, um, I have prayed about it. This has been a year actually. So, I have been praying about it. I'm just like, okay. So I chose my direction based off of what I felt like the Lord wanted. And I was talking to my husband, and he was kind of like, I could tell by the look on his face that it wasn't the direction that the pastor would have gone. So, I was like, "Okay, well, I'm the one that's talking, so I'm the one who's prayed about it, and I get to pick." So, I went with my way. But, I just wanted to, just kind of go ahead and say, I realize that there are people here who have been in ministry a lot longer than I have, and so I am not arrogant enough to think that what I have to share is the end all be all. These are just things that have worked for me, that have spoken to me throughout our ministry here. Like Anna said, we have been here for 26 years. So Jimmy and I met in college, got married, came to Michigan. Jimmy was already here in Michigan, but as soon as we got married, came right to Michigan. So we've been here all 26 years. Um, and there have been a lot of ups and downs over those years. So tonight, I don't want to just speak to a pastor's wife level of longevity in the ministry. I kind of I felt like I wanted to go in a broader sense. So, there are a lot of people in our churches that have been in ministry for a long time. It could be the women's ministry, the children's ministry, um, secretary, whatever it is. Some of them have been in ministry for a very long time. And so, there are a lot of different ways for us to serve, a lot of different ways for us to be in a ministry. So that's where I'm kind of going tonight. But a lot of these things also can be looked at as a pastor's wife, from a pastor's wife point of view. My ministry involvement, I grew up in a pastor's home. I worked alongside my mom and dad for many years. My mom and dad, who are on here tonight, and I see my sister as well. Um, so we worked alongside of them for a long time. And my first Bible lesson was to my sisters with the Amy Carmichael flannel graph on our couch. I'm sure that they loved me teaching them. I've been involved in bus ministry, nursery, children's church, VBS, women's ministry, and currently I am working with our teens, music, and we just started a new family ministry. And so my husband and I are actually doing something we've not done in a very long time in working in a ministry together. I know that sounds weird, but we are. So we are doing that. And then pastor's wife, always, that never changes. So I don't say all those things to say, oh, look what I've done. I only mention those things to say, I have experience and I've moved from different ministries, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But when leading a ministry or being involved in a ministry, there's going to be periods of discouragement. I'm sure all of you on here have been through that. There's the really good times. I've been on the mountaintops and I've been in the valleys with probably each and every one of these ministries. But these methods that I'm going to kind of just mention tonight are some things that have been helpful to me. So when I feel like maybe I'm getting a little discouraged about what's going on, um, this is what I do. And I tell my people all the time, my teenagers all the time, sometimes you need to take assessments. You need to take an evaluation of yourself. And so that's kind of what I'm going to talk about tonight. It's like a process of evaluation. So the first thing that I personally do is I look at the ministry itself. Is this ministry still fruitful? Am I still seeing Are we still seeing fruit from this ministry? It's really hard because you have to be honest with yourself in this evaluation. I don't know about you, but I'm my worst critic. So, sometimes I have to pull someone else in as well. Talking to your pastor is really, really helpful. Asking him if he sees fruit. Like, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? And allow yourself to be honest and allow him to be honest as well. Um, Ask yourself, what is your why? Why? Why did I want to start this ministry or be a part of it? And is that why still true for you? Again, honesty, it's hard. Um, if your why has changed, then maybe it's time to start thinking about some things. But I also think that it's really, really important not to just stop there. I think there are some other things that we need to look at and assess and see if any of those things are changing our why. So, looking at our why. Also, seasons. So we talk about seasons, in nature. We talk about seasons of our lives changing, but there's also seasons in our ministry as well, our ministry life. Um, Maybe the season of a certain ministry has come to an end and it's not as productive as it once was. That's okay. I think about VBS for us. We did VBS for years, loved it. The kids loved it. We had so much fun. But we're in the north, things are a little different where we're at. Down south, growing up, if you had VBS, everybody was coming to your VBS. You could have a home church, but you still went to somebody else's VBS, right? That's kind of just how it goes. Here, it's not like that. And so we watched over the years as it just kind of dwindled and it just kind of died off. And so we had to make a hard decision to let it go. But in letting it go, we were able to put our energy into other things that have proved to be very effective for us and for our area. So we've been able to put our resources and our energy into other things. So maybe the season for that ministry has come to an end. Um, Also, sometimes our season for involvement in something may come to an end. And again, that's okay too. I'm at a point in my life where I tell my nursery people, I'm like, I can work in the nursery. I don't mind working with 3 to 5 year olds, but please, for the love of everything, do not put me with toddlers. I don't have the patience. I don't have the patience for it anymore. But there was a time when I would get in with the toddlers and be down on the floor, loving it, loving life. I'm just not in that season anymore. So sometimes our seasons change, like just what's going on in our lives. It just makes it change. But also, um, physically, sometimes our seasons change. And those can be, I think, those can be some of the hardest. And we'll talk about that again here in a few minutes. But whatever you do, if you leave a ministry because you feel like your season has ended in that ministry, unless it is for physical or spiritual healing. And even then, don't just sit. If you need healing, I get that completely. There are times when you have to say, I need to focus on what God has for me. I have to. I get that. Um, but always ask where God wants you next. If you feel like maybe this has ended, maybe there's somewhere else. Maybe God put something else on your heart. Sometimes that happens too. So evaluate your ministry. Um, I put a timer up here and I totally forgot to turn it on. So I'm like, I was so set. I was ready. I was like, yeah, I forgot it. Sorry. So I will give me a little sign if I go too long because my husband tells me I'm long-winded. Um, so evaluate the ministry. Secondly, and this to me is one of the hardest, evaluate yourself. This is true in being a pastor's wife, um, leading a ministry, Sometimes we have to evaluate ourselves. Is the problem me? Sometimes it's not just these other things that we've talked about. Am I in a right relationship with God and others? So making sure that that is right. We have to check that. How's my personal time with God? I find, and I'm sure that a lot of you have found this too, a lot of times when when somebody says, I just can't do this. I can't do this anymore. I'm just not getting anything out of it. Or, sometimes when we get down to it, this one is something that's lacking. And I know that I struggle with it myself. But sometimes we forget that preparatory study for a ministry cannot take the place of our own time with God. It can't. If that's the case, that means that we are giving out everything that we get in, and we cannot run that way. We can't run that way in life, and I know I'm talking to myself. Um, and we can't run that way in our spiritual lives either. Um, if we're not getting something. So we need to look at our personal time with God. Um, Thirdly, what's going on in my own life? Could this be blurring the lens that I am looking at this ministry through? What's going on in my life? And a lot of times this is completely legit. Um, there are things that happen in our lives that either can pull our focus away or and not in a bad way, but they consume us. Like these situations consume us. Or sometimes there are things going on in our lives that maybe are making us bitter. These are things that we need to seriously look at and ask ourselves, assess. Um, the last one, am I comparing myself to others? I feel like that is so hard. Um, I struggle with that myself. Um, Comparing myself to others. I read something the other day. It said, comparison kills contentment. When you're sitting there thinking, my class isn't as fun as theirs, or I can't speak as well as they can, or I don't have jokes like they do. Um, I'm not as organized as they are. It doesn't matter because God has called you, not someone else. Even if you are sharing a class or you're doing something together, God knows your personality. He knows your learning styles, your teaching styles. He knows your organization or disorganization. Um, he knows your sense of humor. He created you. He created all of those things that make you. And so trust him on this. Just trust him. If you find yourself not being able to be confident in yourself, just trust God and be like, you know what? I'm just going to trust that he created me that way and it's going to work. So be confident in who you are. If you want to take helpful pieces from other people, great, do it. Look at what you're doing. If you can incorporate it and move forward. You don't need to dwell on, oh, I can't believe I didn't think about that. Or "Ah, this would have been so helpful. And now I know why people aren't going to, or whatever. Don't dwell on those things. Just move forward. Galatians 6, chapter 6, verse 4 and 5 says, but let each one examine his own work, and then he will have rejoicing in himself alone and not in another. For each one shall bear his own load. Another translation, the New Living Translation says, pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else, for we are each responsible for our own conduct. Kind of reminds me of when Peter was talking to Jesus and he was like, well, what's he doing over there? He's like, what does it matter to you? Feed my sheep. Well, what's he doing over there? Doesn't matter. Feed my sheep. What you worry about you. So when we focus on what we're doing, that will help us tremendously. Again, just because somebody offers a suggestion, it doesn't mean that it's a bad suggestion. Longevity in a ministry doesn't equal perfection or knowing everything. Um, we have to, again, not be so arrogant to think, I've been doing this for 25 years and I don't need you coming in here telling me. Um, sometimes people can approach you in a negative way, but sometimes the way that we um, are not approachable is negative. And sometimes they really do just want to help, and they don't know any better than to just not offer a suggestion. Um, I I have the same thing. Like when somebody offers a suggestion, sometimes I feel myself on the inside going, "What?" I just feel it, and I'm like, "Don't show it on your face. Just let it go." But sometimes there are really good suggestions. So again, that goes to be responsible for your own conduct. Even how we take suggestions is being responsible for our own conduct. So we need to be willing to change if we find that something is not effective. Because we've always done it that way, it's not effective. Not always, sometimes, but for the most part, it doesn't work. It just doesn't. So be willing to make changes. Some things that my husband and I have talked about doing, and there's lots of things that we've got in the works. We just haven't rolled them all out yet as to not overwhelm our church people. Um, is coming up with some type of a form or a survey to ask people, how is this going? um, in my classes, in my teen class. I have done that before. Like, how is the class going? How do you feel things are going? Are you feeling like we're a good unit? Do you feel like you're connecting with other people? Do you feel like you're connecting with me? Do you feel like you're learning about Jesus? Like all of these things, like ask questions and be willing to make changes to make things better. Um, so looking at the ministry, um, looking at yourself. And then I think um, one of the biggest factors, one of the biggest tells in how you are being effective in a ministry is looking at the participants, the people that are under your ministry. Again, whether that is just as the pastor's wife, not just the pastor's wife. That's not what I mean. As the pastor's wife, as a Sunday school teacher, church treasurer, like, I mean, you're affecting people, but it's a different way. Musician, whatever it is, look at the participants that are in your ministry and in your program. Um, I, Jimmy and I do this from time to time. And it might take you even getting a piece of paper out and just writing people down, writing names down, and then looking at where they've come. How far have they come? I've had a lot of people when they feel like it's time for them to move on from a ministry, and it's not always a bad thing. It's not always a I just can't do this anymore. There are legitimate things and legitimate reasons, but when they say nobody's getting anything out of this. Um, a lot of times I'll say, "What about so and so?" "Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, they're doing better, but okay, that's progress. That's something that you need to thank the Lord for. That's a blessing. You had a hand in that." I think back to I think it was our first year here. And we had a gentleman walk into church on Sunday morning. We were a very small congregation back then. We came here, there were 20 people, family of like 10, got mad and left. So here we sat. There were days that we would sit with 7 people in a church with 66 pews. It was discouraging. But we had so when anybody came in, we were always like, "Oh, somebody new is here." So we were so excited. This man walked in and he sat down in the pew, and you could tell that he was a little worn. And so at the end of service, he came forward and he got saved that day. Well, Jimmy was talking to him afterwards, and he said, so, where do you live? Where are you from? He was like, well, I'm from the area. I actually grew up coming to this church, which we get a lot of that around here. Miss Lori can tell you that. But so I grew up coming to this church as a kid, and I've just really not been thinking about God at all. But today I just felt really compelled to come in here. And so Jimmy started talking to him a little bit more. And as he left, Jimmy said, well, I don't remember what he asked. But anyway, come to find out, this gentleman was so wasted the night before that he had left his car somewhere, did not know where it was. He said, I'm walking down the street. My brother literally lives right down the street. I'm walking to his house so that we can go find my car. It's in the city of Westland, we think. So they went out looking for this car. After that, Jerry Hensley came to church every week. He was there faithfully, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, for about 5 or 6 weeks. And then that 6th week, he had a massive heart attack and died. One of his teenage sons found him. And so that was the first time that we had really, as a congregation, kind of been rocked by something by that, like that. But from that, his brother and his 4 children and wife started coming to church. And they've been coming all these years. Their kids came through our kids program, our teen program. Some of them aren't here anymore, but one of them is now here with her husband and their 2 children. And my daughter is now teaching their children in church. And this year we had that gentleman's niece, one of them, she came to the Lord. And now she is here with her husband and her children and her in-laws and her parents. I mean, it is just amazing to me to look at the story of that family, where they have come and how it has been, how much they've been affected. So when you look at your participants, you have to look at where they've come, look at their spiritual maturity, and then look at, are they teaching and mentoring people now? That's huge. It's something that I think we dismiss, or we get so busy and caught up in other things that we don't take the time to look at that growth in people. And we have so many stories of families that have had that kind of a situation. And so many people that have come through that are the same way. And so we now actually, one other thing that I want to share is the family ministry that my husband and I are helping to start. We are working on it with one of our teens. So she came through our kids ministry, our teens. I taught her in on both of those levels. And now she's married, and her husband are coming alongside of us, and we're doing this together. So just to be able to do things like that with your church people is absolutely amazing. People that you have mentored, people that you have taught, it makes a difference. And sometimes we have to stop and remind ourselves of that. And so whatever that looks like for you, whether it is writing it down, going back, whatever you need to do, it is so, so, so important to look at that spiritual growth and to measure things. Just a few other little reminders, some final thoughts. One, if you're alive and breathing, God has something for you to do. You are important. You matter. Galatians 6:9 says, and let us not grow weary of well-doing, for in due season we will reap if we don't give up. I promise, wherever you're at in your journey of ministry, whether you have been doing it for 35 years or whether you've been doing it for 5 years, if we don't give up, God has promised that we will reap in due season. it is making a difference. God's not just leaving us out here, just letting us flail around. But we have to stay faithful in what we're doing. Number two, no matter where you're at in your journey of ministry, remember, and I had never, this is awful. And my husband is preaching through the book of Hebrews. Don't tell him I said this. But I didn't remember him saying this verse. But God appreciates you and your service. Hebrews chapter 6, verse 10 says, "For God is not unjust, so as to overlook your work and the love that you have shown for his name in serving the saints as you still do." I thought, what a great way to put that. God appreciates you and your service. God sees it. I just love that. I think that is so cool. What greater encouragement is there than God saying, "You know what? I see you. I see what you're doing. I appreciate that." Not that we do it to be appreciated, but especially as moms, isn't it nice every once in a while just to hear, "Hey, I appreciate you. I appreciate that." Or a wife. Like, we all need to hear it. And God knew that we would. So he put that there, and he appreciates us and he appreciates our service. So always remember that God sees you. Number three, you are not alone. You are not alone. This is a lie from Satan, and he works so hard. I feel like this is one that he works quadruple time on, just trying to get people to believe that you're alone. You're not. You are not alone. Um, I don't, there were a lot of years that I did not have a mentor or a friend that was local that I could kind of bounce ideas off of and talk to and kind of go over things with. But I have that now, and I more fully understand. I don't even know if that was correct, but understand better the importance of having that. If you don't have that, I pray that it's something that you can find. Um, if you don't have that, I can be that. If you just need somebody to talk to, if you just need somebody like, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Does it sound stupid? Do you think it'll be helpful?" I have friends in different states that I still reach out to, and I'm like, all right, girls, I got a question. Does this sound dumb? Or this isn't working. Is there something else that I can try? And so they'll give me ideas. So having support makes a huge difference. But you're not alone. Um, there's even if you want to reach out, if you feel like you're alone, you don't have anything or anyone, please do reach out or reach out to Anna. Um, there are resources that Anna can talk to you about for our pastors' wives. Um, and then as far as any ministry, um, we can find like somebody in your area, even like we know so many different people. We're from so many different areas. We probably all are like, "Oh, I know so and so. She lives close to there. She probably, would meet you for coffee every once in a while, or wouldn't mind if you texted her." We need to rely on each other. And I think that there are more people that want to mentor and support than are being utilized. So just keep that in mind. Um, and then I want to end with Acts chapter 20, verse 24. Paul was talking and he said, "But my life is worth nothing to me unless I use it for finishing the work assigned to me by the Lord Jesus, the work of telling others the good news about the wonderful grace of God." God has called all believers to share the good news. We know that. But he's also called some to specific areas of service. And if you're in the throes of discouragement, hang in there and cling to the fact that God appreciates you in your service. And I like that verse, Acts 20:24, where it says, finishing the work assigned to me by the Lord Jesus. God has given you a specific thing. He's given us our skills and abilities, all of those things to work for something specific. And so hang in there. And again, if you need any help finding somebody to maybe reach out to or to mentor, I know that there are many of us here that can help. So that's all I have for tonight.